Hello, third grade. So this is a story called Sambalele, and it's another story from Brazil. There was an old woman who lived in a hut in a clearing in the great Amazon forest. She was an old woman, but she was also very strong and very capable. She built her house herself, and she planted a garden around it. A garden with all kinds of fruits and vegetables. Some you may have seen before, like pumpkins, beans, and peas, and some you might never have seen before, like mangoes and papayas. Every morning, after looking after the garden, she used to go to the river and fish. Now somewhere far away in the forest, there lived Sambalele. Sambalele was a little monkey. He lived with his tribe in a very dense and overgrown patch of forest. Sambalele wasn't a very nice monkey. He was very mischievous, always playing little jokes, which were not really that funny, on other monkeys. Like for example, one day he set their tails on fire. One day, Sambalele, bored and having done every kind of mischief he could think of, decided that he was going to leave his tribe and go out in search of adventure. So to the general relief of his whole tribe and to their happiness, off Sambalele went. Now here is Sambalele's song. Samba, samba, sambalele, samba, samba, sambolala, samba, samba, sambolale, napahada sayolala. Sambalele jumped from tree to tree for a whole day, and then he slept in a very big tree. The next morning, refreshed, he continued traveling far and far away. At the end of the third day, he found the clearing. He looked at the house with great interest, and then he realized that there was a garden filled with the most amazing vegetables that he had ever seen in his life. His eyes opened as wide as saucers in his head. At that time of day, as usual, the woman was down at the river fishing. She was washing clothes and swimming. And since Sambalele found that there was no one around, he dived headfirst into the middle of the garden, and he began eating everything that he could get his 4 hands on. Because, monkeys have 4 hands. They don't have feet like ours. He plucked everything that he could, even fruit that was still green, and he ate so much that after a while he crawled very slowly on his belly back into the bush, where he lay sick for a few hours. The sun went down, and the old woman came back from the river with 2 very big fish that she had caught, and a pile of neat and clean clothes in a basket on her head. She came into the clearing and immediately noticed the destruction. Everything was torn apart, fruit thrown all over the place, vegetables and young seedlings scattered and trampled on. She was so surprised and shocked that she let the basket fall from her head and the fish fell to the ground. She was in such distress that she almost cried, but she was a strong woman, so instead of crying, she looked very carefully all around and thought, this mischief could only be done by a monkey, and I have no monkeys around here, but there must be a monkey somewhere that has come into my garden and that created this destruction. So there and then, she decided that she was going to get that monkey. She picked up some logs and went into her hut, closing the door after her. All night you could hear her working away, and the lights in the fire kept burning and burning while she hammered and worked and put things together. When the sun came up, the old woman, very tired but happy, came out into the garden with a doll which looked like a 5-year-old girl. This is what she had spent the night making. She took a pot of tar and painted the doll all over so that the doll was sticky from head to toe. Then she took this lovely little girl with a nice grin on her face and stood her in the middle of her garden. Very pleased with herself, the woman took up her clothes and her fishing rod and went down to the river as she did every day. At 12 o'clock at noon, Sambalele woke up and he started scratching his face. He'd had a very uncomfortable night because he had eaten so much. Nevertheless, all he could think about was going back to the garden and eating some more. So he crawled back to the garden, jumped into the middle, and was stuffing his mouth with corn and mangoes when he suddenly realized that there was someone looking at him. Uh-oh, maybe he had been caught. So he turned and looked, and there was this very nice looking little girl grinning from ear to ear. Sambalele thought, well, I can eat some more later. Maybe I should go and ask if this girl will play with me. After all, Sambalele was very lonely being away from all the monkeys he knew, having no one to talk to and no one to brag to. So he went to the little girl and he said, "Good morning, little girl. I am Sambalele."
Samba, samba, sambolele, samba, samba, sambolala, samba, samba, sambolele, napahada sayolala.
"I am a very important monkey in my tribe," Sambalele told the girl. "I am clever, I am intelligent, and I'm very rich, and I jump from the tallest of the trees." None of that is true. And he went on bragging like this, and finally asked the little girl, who was of course silent, "What is your name?" The girl just grinned. "Well," said Sambalele, "maybe you'd like to play with me. We could run around the garden, and then we could go and find something interesting to eat, and perhaps we could sing some songs together." The little girl stayed silent. So Sambalele said, "Haven't you got any manners? I'm talking to you. Won't you answer me?" But again, the girl just grinned. "Listen, when I talk to you, you should answer me because I am Sambalele, a very clever and important monkey. Answer me, I'm getting very annoyed with you." He stomped his foot with impatience. Now, of course, all the girl could do was grin her lovely wide smile behind the tar. So Sambalele smacked her very hard in the face and, to his surprise, his hand got stuck. "Let go of me," he said. "Let go of me or I will smack you again." But the girl just grinned. So he smacked her on the other side of her face, and to his surprise, his other hand stuck. "Let go," he said, "or I will kick you." So he kicked her, and his foot stuck fast. More furious than ever, he kicked her with his other foot, and that foot stuck too. "You silly little girl, let me go or I will hit you with my head." So he finally hit her with his head, and that got stuck too. Finally, he switched his tail at her, and now Sambalele was completely stuck. At sundown, the old woman came back, and as she came into the garden, she heard the howling and screaming of Sambalele. Now this time, she had a bamboo stick with her, and she was smiling. "Well," she said to Sambalele, "so you are the pest who has been destroying my garden and eating the green fruit and breaking my plants. You are the nasty thing who destroys what you cannot eat and breaks what you cannot take away. Right now, I've got something for you." And she gave him such a whack on his bottom that Sambalele broke free from the tar girl with a yell and a scream. But his tail was so stuck so fast that it wouldn't come away. He pulled so hard that his tail broke off, and he ran into the forest, leaving it behind. Sambalele did not stop running until he got to his tribe of monkeys, to whom he told his tale, very much differently. "Ah," said Sambalele, "I'm so glad to be back. I've been in a terrible, terrible place in the forest, where there lives a sorceress and her daughter. The daughter doesn't speak, and the sorceress is 30 feet tall." But all of the monkeys laughed and sang. They made a mockery of his story. He was a monkey without a tail. And the other monkeys made up a song about him that sounded like this.
Samba, samba, sambolele, samba, samba, sambolala, samba, samba, sambolele, napahada sayolala.
And if you translate that from Portuguese into English, it basically means Sambalele is sick. He has a sore head. Sambalele deserves a handful of smacks. And that is the story of the silly monkey named Sambalele. I hope you enjoyed.